Great to have joining us right now, a man who's written a very interesting book about a world-famous figure in literature. It's called Ernest Hemingway's Secret Adventures between 1935 and 1961. The full title, Writer, Sailor, Soldier, Spy. And we're joined today by the author, Nicholas Reynolds, who's had a very interesting career himself in the military and as a CIA officer. And he joined us by telephone. And Nicholas, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, good to have a chance to chat with you. An opportunity to read through the book, and I guess everybody has read some sort of Ernest Hemingway as part of their an assignment in high school, I would imagine. But I was a little surprised myself to find out that he had this other life as a spy during World War II. That was pretty well kept a hidden secret for a long time, wasn't it?
Well, parts of it were open secrets, but parts of it were secrets that just didn't emerge till 2009. And, I personally was taken aback by finding out that he had a relationship with the Soviets. I had never imagined that. And then as I was doing my work, I was thinking, so what do all these events add up to? Does it show he was really interested in something other than what we thought he was interested in, which was being a novelist and a writer primarily, though he had all these other sides to him? Is this one more side that we've missed? And I came to the conclusion that this is a guy who is fascinated by secrets and their secret activities, private relationships, influence behind the scenes, access to decision makers on the world scene, which would include President Roosevelt and Chiang Kai-shek and the Secretary of the Treasury Morgenthau. So yeah, there's another aspect of Ernest that I think that at the very least the Hemingway biographer needs to look at. Here's a guy who's spending almost as much energy on this kind of activity as he is on his principal activity, which is being one of the greatest writers of the 20th century.
Yeah, you see, the image is that we have, he was having all these adventures, even though a lot of it was during tough times, but he was having these great adventures himself. So I guess that would make a perfect cover, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Now, this kind of started, as I read through the book, back in late 1930s in Spain. Isn't that how it kind of all began?
I would say his political consciousness takes definite shape in Spain in 1937-38 when he goes to cover the Spanish Civil War. And the agenda, his political agenda it's at that point that he becomes a dedicated anti-fascist, even a true believer in anti-fascism.
And that's where he was recruited by, I guess, what we know now as the KGB. I didn't realize it was called something different, the NKVD, right?
It was the NKVD at the time, and while he's in Spain, he meets with NKVD officers, and he spends a fair amount of time with Comintern agents. So that's the Communist International, which is kind of the propaganda arm of the Soviet Union, and it's semi-secret. It keeps confidences and imposes discipline, but it's not the full-fledged spy organization. Only later, in 1940, the end of 1940, does he meet with NKVD operatives and a series of meetings that winds up with his agreement to be an agent for them.
Well, what do you think they thought they would get from him? Weren't they kind of, I know they weren't mortal enemies of us back then, but they weren't exactly our total friends, right? Even though they were sort of an ally during World War II, right?
They were definitely an ally in World War II, but this is before that. And
right.
So, at this point, they're really neither friends nor enemies. We have diplomatic relations with them, but I wouldn't say the two countries were allied.
Right.
The Soviets are jockeying for position. They're worried about what's going to happen in World War II, even though they're not quite in it yet. So, what do they want from Hemingway? They see Hemingway as much as a journalist, as a novelist. And for them, journalists are they're like spies. They have secret relationships with them. They're unlike spies in that they're not going to the Department of State or Department of Treasury and bringing documents from the safe and giving them to the Soviet handler.
Right.
But they are like spies in that they they can provide information, kind of background information. If you're in the Soviet, you live in the Soviet. Stalin, I think he might have gone outside the Soviet Union once in his life.
Right.
This is the whole rest of the world is like a closed book to these guys. You know what goes on here? They really have only limited understanding of Europe and even less of the United States. So they want trusted sources who can, kind of give them background information and also provide entree to people they might want to meet or get information from. Hemingway had a great Rolodex. He could go and did go from the White House down to the front lines in Spain, talking to privates on the firing line.
Do we know exactly what information he may or may not have provided to whoever he provided it to? And was that ever made public, or was that secretive?
So the Soviets say in a file summary that was written in the late 40s, they say that he never provided any significant political information to them. Mm-hmm. So my guess is, I'll take them at their word, my guess is that he limited himself to platitudes. I think he had something like buyer's remorse pretty soon after he signed up with the Soviets. He liked them well enough, but it's one thing to be friends with Soviet spies or Soviet representatives, to trade confidences with them, to pick their brains about this and that, and maybe give them a little inside information of your own. It's quite another thing to be a recruited agent of a well-established secret service like the NKVD.
Yeah, and he also was in Paris as well, right? And also had a lot to do with Cuban politics, didn't he? He had some sympathy with Castro, so he did a lot of different places he was at. So
if we take it chronologically, he's in Cuba after he gets recruited by the Soviets, but there he works for the U.S. Embassy, and he runs a little counterintelligence bureau in town. Then he hunts submarines off the north coast of Cuba. Then he gets outside Paris, where he runs a tactical intelligence bureau with the American Spy Agency, the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS. And then in the 50s, in Cuba, he has his sympathies for Fidel Castro, who is the up-and-coming rebel leader, not a communist. I mean, I think we have to remember that. Fidel, in the 50s, portrays himself as anti-authoritarian. He's against the government of Batista, that is a militaristic dictatorship, basically, right, that's oppressing the little guy. And he's the underdog. He's the bearded rebel in the hills with a few guys and a few guns and fighting against great odds. And that's Hemingway's kind of guy. So it's only later that Castro emerges as a full-fledged communist. Whether he became one or had been one all along, I don't know. But then Hemingway has to make a choice. Do you stay in Cuba? Do you by his very presence in Cuba, he is endorsing the Castro government, which continues to move to the left and denounce the American government more and more. And so ultimately Hemingway does make the choice and go back to the States.
Well, it's a fascinating book. I wish we had more time. We're just about out, but it's called Writer, Sailor, Soldier, Spy, Ernest Hemingway's Secret Adventures, and we've been talking with Nicholas Reynolds today. And Nicholas, give out your website or where people can get more information about the book.
I would go to the HarperCollins website and look for the book. They do a great job of keeping that up. And Amazon has a lot of information about the book as well.
Great. Nicholas Reynolds, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again. Thanks for being with us today.
You bet. Okay, my pleasure.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.